And welcome to another Cardinals Nest here on HBC TV 25. I'm Dean Beckman, joined by our Sports Information Director, Donnie Netto. This is the show about St. Mary's athletics, and we have plenty to talk about. This is the winter sports season now coming to an end very quickly. And Donnie, we've got Greg Moore. He's our women's hockey coach on the program. Donnie, they're one of three of the winter sports teams that have qualified for the MIAC playoffs. So it's an exciting time at St. Mary's. It's a busy time, and with all of the snowfall, it's been kind of a crazy time.
It has. It really has been. And looking forward to talking to Greg a little bit about their upcoming game against Gustavus. And then we'll bring David Foley, our women's basketball coach, will be on for the second half of the segment, and we'll talk about his playoff game against Bethel on Tuesday night. So a busy playoff time for us, and it's really nice to have three of the four teams in playoff contention and still playing at this time of year. So it's a good time of year for St. Mary's athletics.
Yeah, it really is. And Greg, before we get to the big matchup with Gustavus in the first round of the MIAC playoffs, walk us back through the final weekend of regular season, right? Because there was no guarantee that you would get in. There was hardly a guarantee. No one knew who was going to get into the playoffs in kind of that last spot. Yeah, so kind of walk us through that.
It was a very anxiety-filled week. Jason and I, when we started getting down towards the last few weeks, we knew that we had a shot. We knew that we had an opportunity. We knew we were going to need some help, though, unfortunately. And coming down the stretch, we've always talked with our team about control what you can control. And unfortunately, you can't control a lot of the other teams. But when you're kind of dependent on the other teams for help to get you into the playoffs, it makes your mind wander. And then you start worrying about stuff that just doesn't need to be worried about. So it's nice to be done. I know going into Saturday when we still needed one more game of help and knowing that we could do our job and still knock it in, it was a very tough Saturday. But luckily, at the end of the day, we knew our outcome and we knew we were going to the playoffs, so it was a great day today.
Well, I have to wonder how you keep your hair so nice and dark, because with two nail biters against St. Olaf and needing Augsburg to beat Concordia basically twice, it was a crazy weekend. Talk a little bit about the games you played. A 4-3 win on Friday night kept you alive. And then you come back knowing that Augsburg has already beaten Concordia, so all you had to do was win, and to come away with a 2-1 win on Saturday. Talk a little bit about the weekend in terms of getting the job done.
Yeah, I mean, a Friday night was kind of an up and down kind of night. So Olaf scored the first goal, so to be down 1-0 kind of early in the first, it really kind of slapped us in the face a little bit, and we really got to see what kind of response our team was going to have. To come out with 3 goals in the first and be up 3-1 after one, we felt very confident going into the second. Unfortunately, that confidence kind of stopped after the first, and Olaf kept just chipping away, and they got it tied to a 3-3 game, and we got a great goal late from Sophie Zebro, who game winner about 8 minutes left in the game, and that was all it took on Friday. And then Saturday, go out to a quick 1-goal lead, and unfortunately it took all the way to the third period to get the second one, so it was just one of those ones that just kind of kept you on edge. You know, it made us have our best game, that's for sure.
You know, I want to talk, and you and I have talked a little bit about this. Obviously Saturday was senior day. You had 5 graduating seniors, 2 of which, because of injuries, hadn't played basically all year. And talk a little bit about what you did for those 2 seniors. Walk us through that opening face-off and what you did, because I think it's one of the classiest things I've seen for a senior day in my time in sports.
So Ashley Corcoran and Maria Herman. Maria has a torn ACL, and she did that against Augsburg the first half. And Ashley Corcoran actually broke her leg against Eau Claire and had to have surgery and a rod put in. So they haven't played all year, and I really wanted to try to find a way to incorporate them in the last game. And I really, really wanted to get them a start. So I had arranged with John Bazzacchini, the head coach at Olaf, to say, hey, I'm going to start these 2. Will you let us win the face-off? Well, I said, I'll take my time out and I'll change them. But I just want to give them the opportunity to be announced at starting lineups and give their parents one opportunity to see them in their gear and start a game before they hang it up for good. So it was. I knew Buzz is a really quality guy, and I knew he'd have no problems with it as long as the officials didn't have any problems with what they didn't. it was a nice way to send them out of their senior year.
And I think it meant a lot to the players too, not just those two seniors, but seeing the reaction that they got with Ashley, and you call timeout and they're all huddled around Ashley, giving her a hug, and Maria too. It's like it really meant a lot, not only to those two individuals, but to the whole team in general.
Well, and I think it's the one thing that gets lost a lot, especially in college athletics, that we're here for the kids. I mean, we really are. And I shouldn't say kids, young adults. I mean, this is their last opportunity all of them are going to have to play competitive sports. And some things is more about winning. And this is one of those opportunities that I saw and said, hey, you know what, I don't care what this does for us competitively, because obviously I lost our timeout. It would have been really, really nice in the third period to be able to do that after a couple icings. But it was definitely one of those things that this was more important than the outcome, and I knew our team could respond and we'd be just fine.
Before we talk about Gustavus, I know that you and your dad are very close. Obviously, Coach Bill Moore is the men's coach. They're also in the playoffs with 2 wins over St. Olaf. Ironically, a 2-1 win on Saturday as well, same as the women. Do you talk at all to him about the playoffs? He's had a little more experience in terms of being a head coach in playoff atmosphere and playoff settings. Do you guys talk at all about that?
Not really. We went to playoffs in 14, 15, and 15, 16 when I was an assistant, so I'm pretty aware of kind of the format and how everything goes in terms of travel and all that kind of stuff. And to be honest, it's just another game. It's a different season. It's win or go home type of deal. But in the end, we're going to come and compete and give ourselves our best opportunity to win. And that's what it comes down to. It's just another game in our eyes.
Well, I'll tell you, one advantage you have over your dad this year is that you don't have to go to Concordia. You just have to go to Gustavus. So let's kind of focus on that game now. Gustavus is a team you faced already twice this year. So tell us what you know about them from those previous 2 meetings.
Yeah, the Gustavus is a very renowned team. For the last 10 years have been in the MIAC championship conversation. They're a tough team. They're going to come at us, and they're going to try to come at us in waves. They try to just beat you down with their relentless attack. They're constantly persistent on the puck. They try to outnumber teams down low, and they try to win the net front battle. They don't necessarily try to beat you with their skill as much as they try to beat you with their will and desire and determination, and try to just beat you down internally. So as long as we come ready to go and match their pace and energy, it should be a very fun game. I mean, again, it was one of those games that probably one of our better games of the season on a Saturday night that we tied them 1-1 late in the season. So we have a lot of confidence knowing that we have the capacity and we have the ability to kind of match them step for step, and we'll see who in the end comes out on top.
I remember talking to you after that Gustavus series, and we talked a little bit of Friday night was one of those games where you played because they're Gustavus and they were this giant and you were trying to slay. But then on Saturday you turn around, you tie them 1-1, playing extremely well. How important was that 1-1 tie compared to the first game, in terms of really believing, hey, you know what, we're just as good as this team is?
Oh, for sure. And I think you can take a look at our schedule holistically, and you can go right down the line between St. Thomas, River Falls, Gustavus at the time was nationally ranked, Eau Claire, one of our games against Hamlin, even though the score wasn't indicative of the input that we put in. But we play those teams very, very tough, and we have the ability to go with them. It's just now about believing and playing with a sense of no fear that, you know what, in the end, hockey's a game of mistakes, and we're going to make mistakes, and it's now about how can we work hard to make up for some of those mistakes and make sure the other team doesn't capitalize.
Greg, what's the rink like at Gustavus? What's sort of the atmosphere at their rink?
It's a very nice rink. The bleachers are actually raised above the ice surface, so all the fans are kind of looking down over the top of the bench, over the top of the bleachers, over top of the ice. So you get this kind of idea that everyone's kind of just looking down on you. So it's a little intimidating, especially I expect the stands to be pretty full tomorrow, given a playoff game. It's typically what it's been in the past. So I imagine there's going to be a lot of fans there. It's going to be loud. It's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be a very fun atmosphere to play a playoff game in.
And that's an on-campus rink, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So we now know about your playoff opponent and everything. We heard about the senior night. How did the rest of the regular season go? Did it sort of match what you thought might happen this year? Any surprises along the way?
No, I don't think so. I think it matched exactly kind of, in my mind, what was going to happen. I think with 13 freshmen, it's always kind of hit or miss on how the season's going to progress. You have an idea that early on you're going to make some mistakes, but as the season progresses, you're going to kind of figure out how to play and how to kind of make up for some of those mistakes. And that is exactly how the season kind of played out. You look at our first half, right when we go into break, we're playing our best. We go into break, we have to kind of start over beginning of January. We get a slow start through January, but luckily our kids were well enough to know that we go into our first weekend of MIAC play, and over the next 2 we get 6 out of 8 points starting the MIA season in the second half, which ended up being huge for us. So yeah, it's nice that our kids are able to be rewarded for their hard work and their effort thus far this year in getting a playoff berth.
And I was going to say, with such a young team, you have to be thrilled that you were able to get to the playoffs and give them that experience of extending the season.
Oh, yes. I mean, especially considering we haven't been back in the playoffs since 15-16, that it's been 3 seasons, that the only players we have on our team that have playoff experiences are freshmen, and with 2 of those freshmen not playing because they're hurt with season-ending injuries, you know, the playoff experience on our team is pretty nil. So giving our large group of freshmen the opportunity to go play in a playoff game hopefully sets the fire and the expectation for the rest of their 4 years.
Yeah, well, Greg, unfortunately, Donnie gets the last word here. He gets the last question.
Actually,
today.
I was just, you know, you're talking about all the freshmen and how important it was for them to kind of grow. But, you know, Ashley goes down early in the year, and all of a sudden you have to rely on 2 younger goaltenders. I know Ari was here last year and played some last year, but you've got her and Jordan Keeley now, who had to step into Ashley's role, and I think that they both did a phenomenal job of kind of carrying you between the pipes.
Yeah, they both did a phenomenal job, and I can't say enough about our goaltenders, but our defense as a whole. Not just our defensemen, but our team defense and our goaltenders. Both of our, like you said, Jordan Keeley was kind of thrust into a role that I wasn't expecting her to fill. You know, having Ashley coming back and knowing Ari was coming back for her second season, I was very confident with those 2 and understanding that those were probably the 2 we were going to end up going with. But when Ashley went down so early, we had to rely on Jordan Keeley a lot for the first 2 months of the season, and she stepped up huge. It really helped Ari kind of step her game up as well, because it made Ari be a little bit better if she wanted to play in games. So having both of them back on the goal line in the crease really helped out a lot, and I think they're a testament of why we are here today, given the fact that they give us so much confidence back in that.
All right, well, Greg, thanks for the season review there, and good luck here in the MIAC playoffs.
Thanks, Dean.
All right, stay tuned. We're going to bring in David Foley, the women's basketball coach, and we'll talk playoff action with them. That's next here on HBC.
The internet just got an upgrade. 1 gig internet is being hailed as a tipping point, revolutionary, and a game changer. No, not that game. This game. The critics are going all in on 1 gig internet. Push your internet to the limit, then rake in the rewards. Get blazing fast speed up to 1 gigabit per second with Luminet Internet from HBC. Call 888-474-9995 today.
And we're back here on the Cardinals Nest as we are talking with some of the coaches who are in the playoffs this winter for St. Mary's University. I'm Dean Beckman, along with Sports Information Director Donnie Netto and David Foley, the women's basketball coach. Women's basketball, one of the 3 winter teams that qualified for the playoffs, and they've already played their game. They took on a very, very good Bethel squad, and unfortunately, David, you came out on the short end of that one. You fought them really hard for 3 quarters, right? Fourth quarter, though, just didn't go your way.
Yeah, I mean, this is always a tough day, the day after the season ends, but I couldn't be more proud of those young ladies and how hard they fought last night and really throughout our season, battling just a ton of adversity with injuries and not having consistent time to practice and some of those things. But yeah, we came out and kind of shifted our game plan a little bit to how we normally play defensively, and kind of sat back and played in a bit of a 2-3 zone to kind of challenge them to shoot the ball. They have some really talented some drivers and some post players that can do some things in the paint. We really try to take that away, and hats off to our players. They responded and bought in and did a great job defensively. We just needed to make a few more shots late and we got good looks. Ours didn't fall, and theirs did, and that was kind of the difference there in the fourth quarter.
You know, you look at the final score, and it really isn't indicative of a 14-point game. You go into that fourth quarter, you're down by 3,
Yep.
and as we kind of talked off camera this morning, you know, Bethel tried to pull away. They tried to pull in the first quarter, they tried to pull in the second quarter, they tried to pull, but you wouldn't let them. It was almost like a yo-yo. You'd let them go out, but then you pulled them right back in, and you head into that fourth quarter just down by 3. And like you said, really, it was just a matter of their shots fell in that fourth quarter and yours didn't. Is that pretty much the way that the fourth quarter unfolded?
Yeah, I think so. And we knew coming in that they're a team that really disrupts you defensively and takes you out of your offensive kind of flow and rhythm with their pressure in the full court. And even in the half court, they're trapping, they're scrambling, they're doing some things. And we weren't really ever able to get comfortable in the half court and kind of run our traditional half court offense. But we did a good job of scoring kind of out of those scramble situations, and their steals and their pressure kind of led to some easier baskets. And in the first time we played them, we kind of caved to some of those things. And this time, I mean, our players responded, and we turned it over, and they might have got an easy one, but we were focused and came together and didn't ever really break in those situations. In the fourth quarter, the game got extended a little bit with some late shots and some open threes that they hit, and then fouling at the end for us a few times there to give them kind of to stretch that lead out. But yeah, it was a 6 to 8 point game. They held us at bay for the majority of the time, but we hung right in there and had a chance to pull away and get into that position going into the fourth quarter, being down by 3, and we just couldn't get some of those shots to fall when we needed.
You know, you mentioned you look at the playoffs especially for basketball, because you played on Saturday. You didn't even know if you were going to get into the playoffs, and you play on Saturday. So you've got Sunday and Monday to prepare for Tuesday's game, and like you said, you really implemented a completely different defensive system. Talk a little bit about how they bought into that, because that can't be easy in 2 days against a team like Bethel, the 3 seed in the conference, to be able to do what you did. Just talk a little bit about how that really worked, because that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I think, and again, just hats off to our players for buying into what our vision was, and we tried to explain the best we could. Hey, this is why we're doing what we're doing. We're trying to get these certain players to shoot the shots and take these 3 players away. Because we looked at the first time we played them, they had 3 players, one with 22 and then the other 2 with 18. Like, hey, if we take these 3 away, this is going to give us a good chance to hold them at bay, and they bought into it. And really, we were off on Sunday, so that was a coach's day for us to kind of watch film and get a game plan in order. And then Monday, I mean, we really haven't practiced full live here for the past 2 weeks, week and a half, just trying to keep people fresh and healthy and ready to go. So it was kind of a walkthrough on Monday, and did some shooting, and hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what our goals are going to be. It's not going to be perfect, but if we can kind of buy into knowing their personnel and knowing who we want to guard, who we want to give a little more space, and kind of the gaps we want to be in, and they bought into it and did a great job with it.
Year 1 is in the books. Unfortunately, we're not talking about a game on Thursday. But can you just talk a little bit about year 1 for the St. Mary's Cardinals under your direction? What maybe were some of the biggest challenges you found, and then really what were some of the more surprising positives that came out of this year?
Yeah, I think like I said, just couldn't be more proud of the team and how they responded to new coaching staff, to new terminology, to new playing style, to kind of a new kind of communication style and some of those things. But just couldn't be more proud of them and how they responded and how they grew together, and that we earned a spot in the MIAC playoffs, and that's no easy feat by any means. And although we maybe could have done some things differently, but we did what we needed to do in the end of the day to get in and get ourselves an opportunity to play in the postseason and to be in the top 6. There were 6 teams in our league that didn't have an opportunity to play this week, and we did. There's a countless number of teams in the country that didn't have that opportunity, and we did. And I'm just proud of them for putting themselves in that position. I'm excited for the future. When we look forward, we had a lot of young players, a lot of freshmen and sophomore players that got a lot of significant time this year, even before conference play started, when you have some real young players that stepped up when some of our leading returners were out with injuries. So yeah, just couldn't be more proud of how they responded in year 1, and excited for year 2 and beyond there with this new group coming in. And then to talk about our 3 seniors. When you have Brandy Blattner, Kirsten and Mary, to do the things that they did in their 4-year careers. Brandy, obviously, throughout her 4 years, was a 3-time all-conference player and should be again this year for a 4-time all-conference. To be 4th in scoring and 3rd in rebounding all-time in St. Mary's women's basketball history, and we've had some really, really good players in our program. Just can't say enough about her, and then Kirsten's leadership at the point guard these last few years, and Mary, just the spirit and the energy that she brought. She was a huge spark off the bench for a number of big wins for us, and to try and replace those 3 is going to be really tough. But the thing is that we don't have to really replace them. We just kind of have to retool and reload, and this is going to be a new identity and a new look for us coming next season, which is exciting too.
Not to downplay Brandy or Kirsten at all, but really I think what Mary brought to this team, because you're right, I mean, she filled a phenomenal role, and it always seemed like when you put her in the game, there was a spark, there was this energy just rose, and I think that, I don't think that maybe from my standpoint, because you're right about people that score the points, but I think Mary is probably the most underrated of the 3 seniors, because really she had a phenomenal 4-year career here.
She did, and her confidence and just the athleticism that she brought to us this season was huge. And I mean, there's a number of games when we're sitting after the game like, man, we should have played Mary more, or she brings so much, and that's I mean, I'm sure she doesn't want to hear that, but and she brought just an energy and a communication and just a smile and a love of the game, which is really significant in a long season. And she led a lot of our huddles pre-practice and did a lot of leadership things for us, and just brought a smile and an energy, and just was a different type of energy for us that we really needed. So she's special.
Bringing up Mary, I think, leads to a good question for you. Is in your first year as the St. Mary's head coach, you had a difficult job in the sense that it was such a deep team. Right? Playing time becomes an issue because there are so many good players that you can put out there.
For sure.
And it helps that you've been a head coach before this, so you had some experience with that. But maybe just talk about your learning curve in joining the team. Not only did the players have to adjust to you, but you had to adjust to a brand new roster and players that you didn't recruit, right?
Right, and I think that relationship piece of trying to get to know them the best I could, and it was really, really fast being here the first day of classes, and we talked the last time I was here of kind of that quick transition and trying to get to know them. And then you had Brandy and Rachel, who were in volleyball during that time, so those are 2 players that weren't in that kind of pool of trying to get to know and being able to spend time around every day. And I mean, it was really hard. We had some really, really good players that are sitting on the bench in crunch time, or sitting on the bench throughout an entire game. I mean, especially early in the season, we saw what Jada Biermeyer could do as a freshman. Rachel Kettle had just an amazing start to the season, while Brandy and Abby were out with injury. Maggie Robertson, you mentioned Mary, Michelle Reamer had some big games for us. Isabel and Kaylee, some players that didn't get a ton of time early. I mean, Evelina in there as well. So it was, and there's a lot of people not even mentioning that played huge minutes for us in parts of the season that when it came down to it here late, when we were a bit full strength, that just were out of the mix. So that's exciting when we think about next year. But I mean, that's tough for those kids that did really, really well, and then kind of get in a different role there. But hats off to them. They came to practice every day. They still worked extremely hard. They still did the things that we needed them to do, whether it was on a kind of looking at what the other teams are doing, or going up against kind of a first 5 group, or even when we split the groups that they came and were about the team first, which as a coach, I mean, that's pretty significant to have that kind of buy-in and that kind of leadership from players that maybe were in a position to play more earlier and then not as much later. So again, hats off to them for being able to do that.
When you look at your team, and really as a coach, that's kind of what you want, because you're losing 3, so somebody's going to have to step into those roles. And there may be, use it, Jada Biermeyer as an example, or even a Rachel Kettle who came off the bench most of the second half of the season. But next year you're probably going to need to rely on them more. So the fact that they stayed focused, they stayed as part of the team, their time is going to come. Sometimes you have to wait your turn. And I got to think that some of those freshmen that you've mentioned that maybe didn't see a lot of playing time, that time's going to come, because you're going to need them in the future.
Right, for sure. And I think this is a motivating experience for young players too, to get a little taste of it. And now, hey, this is what I really need to work on. And even Abby Winter in that mix too. I mean, she dealt with a lot of adversity this year. She was a very significant part of the team her freshman year, and was when she was at full strength and came back with us. But to go through the broken hand and miss a significant amount and then work her way back and then have a lower body injury that really kind of affected her in a lot of ways, and for her to get healthy and for her to get back to her true form, and she has a chance to be a standout player for us as a junior. And then Rachel as well. I mean, coming off a volleyball season, that's a lot of mileage, and Brandy has dealt with that as well. But to get our players back healthy and fresh and motivated and strong, and to get with our great strength and conditioning coach to kind of get them on a plan moving forward. And for Brooklyn was the only player that played and started in all 26 of our games. And it was her and Hallie. Hallie played all 26, had one start in there as well, but we didn't have full strength at all for those 2 games. So it was a good experience to mix people in, but then also to get them motivated and, hey, this is what we need to work on. This is what we're going to be moving forward. And for us to kind of reestablish our identity without Brandy, Kirsten, and Mary, with this new, very talented rising junior class with our 1 senior in Michelle, and then the 5 really talented freshmen in there as well. And then getting Lexi Peterson as a freshman who was out all season with an injury, Shaylee Vessel, who had a great second half of her first season with St. Mary's, to get her back as well. I mean, there's a lot of excitement on this new team and what we're going to look like in this next season.
Well, David, unfortunately, we're out of time today. I know you need to hit the recruiting trail. You've got Minnesota high school playoffs starting now, so I'm sure you'll be taking in quite a few games there. But anyway, great job this season.
Thank
your
you.
first year as the head coach.
Appreciate that.
And thanks for coming on.
Yep.
So.
Thanks for all the support, too. Go Cardinals.
All right, so Donnie and I will be right back. We'll take a look at the men's hockey team also in the playoffs this winter, and we'll wrap up swimming and diving on the season. That's next here on HBC.
Be sure to check out US Golf TV, where you are going to see golf products that you have never seen before. You're also going to see golf tips from some of the leading instructors around the country that are truly changing the way people are teaching the game and challenging the status quo. Also, you're going to see fitness tips that are revolutionizing the way PGA Tour pros are training their body and swinging the golf club. If you want something different, if you're looking for some new information, US Golf TV has it. Be sure to check your local listings. US Golf TV, we've got you covered.
And we're back here to wrap up the Cardinals Nest. Dean Beckman, Donnie Netto. We're focusing this week on our winter playoff teams, postseason teams, and we've got 2 more to talk about. We joked with Greg Moore, the women's hockey coach, that unlike his dad, at least he didn't have to go all the way to Moorhead, Minnesota to take on Concordia.
Right.
That is Coach Moore's task in the men's hockey team on Thursday.
Yes, it is. They head to Moorhead, and I just talked to Coach Moore before we started taping, and they were planning on going up Wednesday afternoon, but with the snowstorm, the bus company says no to that, so they literally have to leave in the morning. They'll travel up to Concordia, the 6.5 hour trip, and then they'll play that night. So it's going to be a long day for them, but you know, you kind of got to roll with the punches. It's a big game for them. They come in just like Greg. They needed a win on Friday or Saturday against St. Olaf to get into the playoffs. They're in. They're secured. They'll play Concordia, and they split their two games during the regular season. Erupted for 7 goals in a 7-2 win. So they know that they can play with Concordia, and it's exciting. They're no strangers to a playoff competition. They've been in it 3 of the last 5 years. So. I think they really are ready to take that next step and get past this quarterfinal round game and see what they can do in the Final Four of the conference tournament. So
they're a hot team. I don't think anybody wants to face them right now.
Absolutely.
And, so swimming and diving is our other postseason team, and they just finished the MIAC Conference Championships, and that took place Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 days this week. So tell us how the Cardinals did.
4 days of swimming, and in 3 of those days, Brooke Shevchik just stole the show. She set 3 school records in the 800 freestyle relay. She was a part of that. She also set one in another relay event, and then in the 400 IM. So she had a phenomenal sophomore season, and really culminated with a great MIAC performance. And I talked to Amber Lowe yesterday about the weekend, and she was like, on the women's side especially, the championships were so fast. The competition, the swimmers were so fast that you take what Brooke did in her 2 individual events and you move them into the WIAC or into the Iowa Conference, and she'd be in the top 4. And here she was 16th or 17th. So it was just, the competition was that great. And for her to get 3 school records is 2 of the school records are 14 years old. So it's not like these are easy records to break. Is really a great accomplishment for Brooke, and really a sign of great things to come for the Cardinal swimming program.
And real quick, Donnie, just a few seconds left. We had the diving coach of the year.
Yeah,
right?
Jeremiah Jackson was named the MIAC diving coach. So congratulations to him. A great honor for him.
All right, that's going to do it for this week's Cardinals Nest. Thanks for watching here on HBC TV 25.